show.
Well, it's Happy National Happy Day and all that, so we can do that. You can take the mickey out of my hair. So now line 3 is flashing away, Julie, so I need to click this button here and see if everything's working. Good morning. Is Trevor there, please?
Good morning, Ian. How are you?
Welcome to the Knowing Your Business show, Trevor, on Radio Horton. Now, we're very well here on Radio Horton. Julie's got some questions. I'm just going to do a little bit of tweeting while I listen to you two. So over to you, Julie.
Right. Hi, Trevor.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Yes, having a cracking day, thank you.
Good. Fascinating interviews we've had so far today, so no pressure, Trevor, but you do need to be fascinating. Is that okay?
Well, I'll do my best, yes. I have to say, your previous two have set the bar pretty high.
I know. I'm not feeling sorry for you at all. Yeah, it has been absolutely fascinating, and it is always really interesting how you see threads between people's lives, and you know, some of the threads are things that freshen my mind from talking to them obviously will come up in our conversation too, because I shall ask you questions down the same line. And the first thread of the day is this thing about decision making. You know, the first line I've got on your brief here, it says you're a pilot franchisee and you'd had your own company for 13 years, and yet you decided to become the first franchisee for the last hurdle, which, by the way, I think is a brilliant business name. So can you just talk us about how you found out about the last hurdle, why you decided to take this leap, and how that decision came about? That'd be great. Thanks.
Well, I was in a business, and when you've been in one for sort of so many years, you get to the stage that perhaps you're running a bit low on ideas and perhaps to some degree a bit low on enthusiasm for the same thing. Yeah. And I had met a lady called Jules who founded The Last Hurdle at networking events, and we had just been chatting about business, about our view for business, and particularly about sort of the ethical side of business. Sounds a bit heavy, but it was particularly sort of a meeting of minds on ethics.
I'm definitely interested in ethics to a huge degree, so yeah, carry on.
Yeah, well, I had worked for and had experienced a number of businesses where ethics weren't the highest point on the agenda, shall we say. You know, it's about whatever buck you could get, however you could get it. And that just doesn't sit with me. I can't do that.
Well, I last week I was doing some lectures for some uni students, HR students, and we were looking at, you know, why businesses fail. And one of them is lack of integrity. If you're in a business and they're not living up to, you know, what they should, whether it's not their values or lack of integrity shown, that is a surefire route to failure. So if it doesn't sit with you, I think that's probably a good thing, sir.
Yes, and so it was combined then with I did a long sort of sporting challenge that gave me a lot of time thinking on my own, what is it that I'd really loved doing, and realised that it was about helping people and helping small businesses. That was my passion. That's what I loved doing.
You are such a man after my own heart.
In a real ethical way. Sorry?
Yeah, I said you are such a man after my own heart. Fantastic. Yeah.
Right.
And really important to ask yourself those questions, isn't it? And to revisit them, because when you started your company, it's probably what you loved doing at the time, but you still need to revisit, don't you? Because things change. Yeah.
They do. You know, I'd changed as a person. I'd grown. I'd got a family and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So things that are important to you do change. When I was very young, I was in a career sense. I was hungry, trying to climb the ladder, trying to get more salary. That was important. And actually, do you know what? That really isn't. And I had a job for a few years where I basically didn't know my kids because I was working all hours. And you realise, do you know what? There is more to life than that.
There's more to life, absolutely. Okay, so you met Jules networking and you found, I was going to say not a meeting of minds, it's more than that, isn't it? A meeting of ethics or values or kindred spirit, if you like.
And that passion to help small businesses, because there are a lot of people out there that, they will try and help business, and whether they use the word consultant or not, and it's all about large pay amounts per day. And do you know what? Small businesses, they can't afford that. No. So if we can take that experience of having our own businesses and help others, but at a sensible rate, and equally, the thing that we do different is we roll our sleeves up and get stuck in. It's not about giving you a list of stuff to do, charging you a huge amount for giving you that list, and then walking off into the sunset.
As a small business myself, quite often I will see something, I wonder if this person can help me. And I thought, no, they just want to teach me how to do it, which is all very well I need to understand, but I need someone to roll the shirt sleeves and do it with me or for me, because I can't do it all myself.
Yeah, I mean, we use the analogy sometimes. It's like if if someone's hungry, if you give them a fishing rod and teach them how to fish, okay, they can be self-sufficient. That's great. There are some people in business that they're so rushed that, do you know what? Give me a couple of fish a day. That's what I need.
I am that woman a lot of the time. I really am, yeah. Don't teach me how to do it for me. But then again, it's not that simple, is it? Because I won't name any names, but, sometimes people will just hire someone. But if you don't understand what they're going to do for you and do not give them a clear brief, you're not going to get the results you want. So,
Absolutely.
There has to be putting yourself to that element of understanding, or even if it's, what the plumber is going to do or the builder is going to do before you instruct them. Otherwise, you're not going to get what you want.
No, absolutely. Trying to be clear in your own mind. And one of the first things we do is talking with someone about their business. It's probably the first time they've ever really sat down, or the first time for a long time, they would have sat down and had 90 minutes doing nothing other than thinking about where do they want their business to go and where is it now.
It's this whole thing about working on your business instead of in it, isn't it? Because
absolutely.
When you're in it, your head is below the parapet and you just get on with it.
Yes,
yeah.
And I equally need that from my colleagues at times for me,
of course, yeah.
You all dive in, and seeing the big picture gets difficult sometimes.
Yeah, and we need those people to do it with us and for us, don't we? Whether it's someone we hire like you, whether it's a mastermind group or colleagues or whatever.
Absolutely.
We need someone to hold us to account, don't we, about what we're doing.
Accountability is one of the big things.
Absolutely.
Most people know what they should be doing in a business.
Yeah.
And actually, the one thing they need is either a little bit of time or a little bit of time combined with an accountability. So, we'll come in and say, so you said you were going to do this last week.
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
And if you haven't, why not?
And I'll help you with the barriers and we'll get over them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, we need to take a minor step backwards. So you've met Jules and she has this business called The Last Hurdle, and you recognise a kindred spirit with a similar ethical value stance to yourself. How do you get from that? I mean, I know there are people out there that I've met networking, like, one day we're going to do something together and I don't know what or when, but it always comes to pass eventually. How did you make that move from nice person I know networking to being one of the team?
Yeah, to be honest, it was about getting to know Jules and getting to understand her business.
Yeah.
So spending time talking to Jules, spending time in her business, and just really taking the time to really try and understand what it was behind the scenes, and to confirm that what was being done was what was being said was being done.
Ain't always the case, is it?
Absolutely. And once you've got that level of trust, I mean, that's what networking's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely it is.
You get that level of trust.
Yeah.
And it was a case of, she spent a while trying to pinch me from where I was working. I was, I'm not too sure. I'm not really. And the more I saw it, and the more I saw what she was doing, and spoke to some of her clients as well, she was very open to allow me to do that. It kind of became a no-brainer, to use that horrible phrase.
So was the whole idea of a franchise something that you cooked up together, or was it Jules's idea or yours as a model?
No, Jules had the idea that she wanted to start franchising her business, but it was still at quite an early stage. So it's kind of, I'm in the very happy position of having a role both almost in the overriding sort of parent company, if you like, as well as being a pilot franchisee. So we get to see what wrinkles are there that I'm experiencing that we need to iron out for if we bring other people on.
Yeah.
Can help write some of the things and give some direction to the business in that sense as well. And equally, have my own business. I'm not someone that's going to be great at working for other people. I don't do big corporates. Don't do it.
I don't understand what you mean at all, Trevor. Yeah, many of us are in the very same boat, aren't we?
Yeah. And I think once you've been in your own business for so long, you almost get to the stage you're unemployable because you are used to making the decisions and acting on them and getting on with stuff. And the thought of having to go through committee and 3 months to get a decision on something, I just can't do it.
Admin chain that you can't actually see the end of the bureaucracy.
Yeah. I started off as a scientist. I would have stayed in as a scientist at the bench if I wanted to keep doing the same thing. But that's not me, and that's why I got out. Something a bit more dynamic.
Okay, I love the story of you meeting Jules and how important it is networking and to get to understand people's values, because I think one of the problems that goes wrong, I think I put a blog up ages ago about collaboration. You know, someone wants to collaborate with you, and you need to ask some questions, because sometimes on the surface we look the same, you know, and we think, oh, you know, you're just the person I need. But you scratch the surface and you get to values, you get to ethics, you get to how they treat their customers and things like that. And the important thing is you're not the same. So, we did this brainstorming session on pros and cons of collaboration. Now, franchiseeing obviously is a bigger version of collaboration.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and some of us had our fingers burned by collaborating with people that were likely to damage our reputation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you are very much, so as a franchise holder, Jules is putting all her faith in me that I will continue with the brand in the way that she's built it.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Absolutely. So there's very much, I mean, and there are lots of franchise businesses out there. And yes, there is a lot of trust that has to be in there. And that's the same then, as you said, with networking, when you're trying to refer people.
Yeah.
You know, if I refer someone to you, it's actually my reputation on the line, not theirs.
Absolutely.
And that, as you say, you've got to get to know someone.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to trust them, understand what they're like under the surface.
And something else I see happening, slight tangent here, is sometimes people will recommend someone they haven't used themselves just because they're big on social networking. And I'm like, do you know what? If you don't actually know firsthand, if it's just them telling you they're good,
that can be dangerous.
I have seen it being dangerous recently, but we won't go there. But it can happen.
No, it can be.
Okay. That's absolutely fascinating, Trevor. Let's move on a bit. And we've talked about going into companies and, you know, helping them. This all sounds a bit vague and nebulous at the moment, so I think we better roll our shirt sleeves up, to use your phraseology, and find out, okay, I'm a small business owner, I need some help with marketing. You come in, you're not going to be too expensive, and what's going to happen next?
Okay. First off, as I've mentioned before, sit down and talk with you. So talk with you for an hour or 90 minutes to really understand where your business is now, where you want it to be in 1 year, in 5 years. And then we can begin to put in the building blocks to get from now to there. And that's what we do at the beginning of every relationship with a client. We just sit and we try and understand your business, understand what you're doing now, who your perfect client is now, what you have in the pipeline in terms of ideas for moving forward. And that enables us to create this development plan. So it certainly isn't a business plan that you go to the bank with and say, you know, give me some money. It's a business development plan, how you can get from here to there.
So when we talk about building blocks, what sorts of things are we talking about?
We're talking about the power of, I mean, we talk about 5 key things that all need to mesh together. So there's traditional sales. We all have to have the ability to deal with sales. Traditional marketing, the things you can pick up and touch.
Right.
The whole online marketing, so your website, your social media presence, etc.
Yeah.
Networking, as we've already said. And then the whole kind of SEO and keyword research so that people can find this beautiful website that you've created.
Yeah.
And if you've got an and between each of those 5 elements, then you're getting synergy of your whole marketing machine, if you like, driving towards a common goal.
I see.
And too many people have an or somewhere in those 5.
Yes, yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
And as soon as you've got the ands everywhere, you've got the synergy, you know, and it's a great word, probably highly overused, but if you've got those 5 things all being really synergistic, you've probably got 7, not 5.
I saw somewhere you're talking about the power of and now you've explained that to me, and I don't have to ask.
There you go.
I see, yeah. And you're absolutely right. And in some of those areas, it's very easy to spot the cowboys, but in others, like, you know, SEO, to someone who's a novice like me, it can be like a black art, and they were just, you know, bombarded by people wanting me to spend lots of money for them to help with my SEO, and me not having a clue what may or may not go on.
Unfortunately, as in many business areas, there are people that are less scrupulous. And we frequently come across websites that they are allegedly paying lots of money for SEO, but you just look at the contents of the words, the way that blogs are written, for example, and it's apparent that nothing is being done. It's just, that's a nice little retained fee, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And off they go.
And also, it's something that changes so quickly, isn't it? You know, keeping on top.
Yes.
Of developments and changes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, Google comes out with new guidelines,
Absolutely.
you know, almost monthly. And it's an ever-moving feast. You're talking about 40 to 50 things that you're trying to look at now, whereas several years ago, you know, you could do things like, if you've got a white background, put just white-coloured text on it, repeating your keyword thousands of times. You know,
don't you just hate it when you come across those kinds of websites?
Kind of
you still
stuff
find them.
Google will so penalise you now. It'll call you a big spam problem, and they'll never put you anywhere near the top.
My daughter told me a tale recently of interviewing someone for an IT job, and they described themselves as an SEO expert, and they said, "Well, tell us what you know." And apparently this person was really arrogant and came up with stuff that was at least like 6 months old, and obviously had done no updating since, and was quietly told, you haven't got the job, and go away and learn about this and this and this, and then you might know what you're talking about. So
I mean, it's no secret the biggest factor you can have is the content of your website, the text that you write in it. Have enough text, have it properly written, and have keywords in there.
So can we carry on this theme of tips for small business owners, because that is a good one? Content of website is important. It's not just write what you do, end of.
Yes.
So give us some tips for small business owners.
Oh, well, when I went to a seminar once, and a guy told me there are only 2 rules in business. So the first rule is never, ever, ever run out of cash. And the second rule is never, ever, ever break rule number 1. And I know it's a very flippant answer, but that's quite a big one for small businesses, to be honest. Managing cash flow, being able to deal with, if you suddenly get a flood of orders, can you deal with it and not upset customer expectations?
But it's so hard, isn't it? So say I'm a small business and I'm running out of money, which, is quite near the truth quite often. So say, I'm running out of money, and you say, or some person tells me, they can fix all my problems and get my funnel running as it should for 5k, and that's actually going to put me in debt. And, we're always facing that. What do I invest, and how can I guarantee a return? Because, of course, you can't guarantee a return. So it's the educated risk, isn't it?
It is. It is very much about an educated risk, and it's very much about going in with your eyes wide open. Because if someone does come to you and promises that they can resolve all your ills, be very wary.
Darn it.
Yes, be very wary.
I was banking on you, Trevor, to resolve all my ills.
Yeah,
back to the drawing
board. But you can do a lot of things that are perhaps expensive in investment in terms of time, but aren't in terms of cash.
Right, okay.
And that's where we're talking about using the power of social media. I mean, Ian is in there, guru of social media. The power of it and how you can get to such a wide audience with such a very specific message.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing you could only do years ago with a huge TV advertising campaign that would cost you millions.
Yeah, yeah.
You can do it now just with time, not with cash.
Yeah, yeah.
So things like that are where you need to be looking for. You need to be not spending cash if you're running out.
I think sometimes people think that time on social media is wasted time or not very productive time. But, I mean, obviously you do have to focus how you spend your time. But I think it's to get into the mindset, this is part of my business.
I think it's treated like any other marketing. So if you were to do classical marketing, you'd be thinking about, okay, what are the benefits of my products or my services?
Yeah.
And then you'd be thinking about, so where is my target audience?
Yeah.
And how can I reach them?
Yeah.
And social media is identical.
Yeah, yeah.
You still have to think about where are your potential customers? Are they on Facebook? If you have a very female-dominated potential marketplace, you should be all over Pinterest because the majority of users are female on Pinterest.
What would you say are the biggest mistakes people make on social media, small businesses?
I think, firstly, saying, I haven't got time for it. Because actually it is such a powerful way of driving business. And the other thing is perhaps not being themselves. It's important that you interact. People buy from people.
True.
So you can have all the fancy marketing messages and the hype in the world, but they still buy from people. So
you
have to be yourself on there as well.
So yourself with a bit of personality, with a...
Let your humour come through.
Yeah.
If you've had a bad day, perhaps, it's 1 o'clock, I've had a bad day, Let people empathise with you and react with you or respond to you as a real person.
It's the human face, isn't it? Yeah. I agree completely. I mean, I could play devil's advocate, say sometimes people go too far with criticising other people, with whinging, with whining, with having 1 o'clock, before breakfast. Going back to what we were saying about, image. Yeah.
I would never advocate going down the route of criticising another business as a way of a positive sales message for you. I just think that's so wrong. You have to be positive about your own message.
Yeah.
But actually, to go out and start criticising others, that's never been a winner in my book. I really would never advocate doing that.
But if the other business is rubbish, why not?
But I think you can say that your business does something in a particular way and be positive.
Yeah.
But what is the point in getting into a slanging match? As I was brought up to, if you haven't got something good to say about someone, don't say anything.
I agree with you completely, Trevor. But you do see it, don't you? You do see people that get drawn in. Yeah.
And unfortunately, you see it a bit too much, probably.
Yes. Yeah. I think there are elements, aren't there, of SEO and social media that does press buttons in people's emotions that it would be really good if it didn't sometimes. I mean, part is the black art of not really knowing what's going on or not understanding where your messages are getting read, I suggest.
Yes, I think it's like a lot of things. If we don't really understand it, we're a little bit wary. We don't quite have the trust level. Yeah. Because we don't understand it ourselves. And that's human nature. That's not anything that we can alter. Yeah. But it is working with it. So there is a lot about trying to educate people about. So I won't give away all my secrets about what I will do to SEO your site beautifully, but I will educate you about the processes I'm going through and what I will be doing. Yeah. And will then be giving you measurements at the end of it to prove what we're doing is having an effect.
And what you're talking about there is transparency, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Just putting it into a language that people understand. Again. Yeah. And anyone that is ethical is transparent in what they do. I can't think of a time or a situation where that might not be the case. Okay.
No, I would agree.
Let's go back a step forward, because talking about social media and SEO fries my brain. So I've heard rumours that good old-fashioned traditional marketing is making a bit of a comeback. What's your views on that?
I believe it is. Yes. How many times now do you get things through the letterbox? Relatively few. Yeah. Again, you have to treat, as with all marketing, where is your target market and what are your benefits? Don't try and selling features and that kind of thing. But if it's done well, good old-fashioned printed material is very powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And I have, on the odd occasion, chosen to go down that route. And, for example, networking events. So people will look at my website. If there and then, if you can actually sort of say, look, here's some information, let's look at it together. Because there is something about an interaction between two people. It's quite nice to sit and look at a leaflet together, or an image, or a flow chart, or something that is meaningful.
Yes, and I think you're back to the people buy from people. It's the interaction that's so powerful there. It's the face-to-faceness. It's why when you go networking, it's important that outside of the networking meetings you have regular one-to-ones with people.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you're just going and having a nice breakfast or a nice lunch with someone. You have to put some effort in. It's another route to market, but like all of them, it takes a little bit of effort.
And there's the matching, isn't there? Because you said be yourself online, and some of us are and some of us aren't, I guess. But then when you meet that person in the flesh, they've got to kind of match up to what they portray themselves as, because otherwise you've got this dissonance, haven't you? You've got something not ringing true. Yeah,
if you have any incongruence anywhere,
that's the word.
It screams out at you.
Yeah.
So human beings are incredibly adept, even though we don't know it, at assessing when there is a difference between words being spoken and the body language, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
And suddenly, you don't know why, but your trust has just gone out the window for that person.
Absolutely right. I don't know if you're aware, but I work as a trainer, and it's a funny thing, because congruence and incongruence are one of my favourite words.
Oh, it's huge.
And they're also something, it's a word that not everybody's always come across. And, those of us that work in certain fields, it's part of our language. But a number of times students have said to me, and they said, well, what does congruent mean? And I've stuck it on the board and come back to it. And it does pass people by that, if all your messages are not in harmony, you will be disbelieved. People won't give you the benefit of the doubt. They'll just think there's something wrong there, I'm not hiring him.
Because they say, isn't it, the words in communication go down to only 7% of the message. If things are incongruent.
That is only in first impressions. It's not all the way through. But if I come to you and I'm dressed the part and I look the part they're expecting, and I say, my giraffe is wearing trousers today, I've got a 93% chance that you're probably going to give me a second chance because the vast part of the message that I'm giving you looks all right. So you think, okay, well, she'll tell me more and then she'll explain why she's talking gibberish. But if I say the right words, but in other ways I look, don't look the part, then you're not going to believe me.
I had a lovely incident to that when a few years ago I was interviewing some people for a role, and one of the guys came in and he sat on the chair and he was slouched right down, his eyes were nearly shut, and he said, "I'm really, really enthusiastic and passionate about what I do." I'm sorry,
what, Trevor? I've interviewed him myself. Oh dear.
Yes, I'm sorry, but that's not coming across.
I've had a couple of brilliant examples of that. I got sent a young lad once. I used to work as a careers advisor, and say young, must have been 19 or so, because I only work with adults. And a local training provider, they said, "Julie, can you just talk to him? Because we can't get him to keep a placement. We keep sending him. People say they'll have him. We send him along for interview and they won't have him, and we don't understand why not."
Right.
So this kid came along, and he had, we had the slouch posture, but we also had this really interesting eye contact where he looked down, then he'd dart up and look at me and look down again. And the impact was he looked shifty. He looked like you couldn't trust him. And I thought, well, in for a penny, in for a pound, someone's actually going to say, so the reason you are not getting your placements is because you do not look like you can be trusted. Even though you've done nothing untrustworthy in the, stealing, lying, cheating.
Body language is just
body
huge.
language. And he was absolutely gobsmacked. And, even the trainers hadn't been able to put their finger on it because they hadn't seen him in the interview situation. And I had. And, I had more than one instance of that. But it's fascinating stuff, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And I've worked with Dale Carnegie for a while, and you spend a lot of time trying to build people's confidence so that they can have that eye contact.
Absolutely.
A lot of it is down to just self-confidence.
Yeah, fascinating. Tell me a bit about Dale Carnegie. It's one of those names that everyone kind of knows. I'm a huge fan, but can we go back to the first moment of that? What was your first encounter with Dale Carnegie?
I went on one of their programs, actually.
Fantastic.
And I was, very fortunate to go on it. And I had so many light bulb moments in the 3 days I was with them.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Because it was all about, it very much messed with what I believe in, which is you've got to get yourself right. It's about how you interact with others. That is the main thing. It's not about sitting there and pointing a finger and saying, "Fred, you're wrong," and "Ginger, you're wrong." Actually, it's how you react and interact and communicate that counts.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
And he's the guy, he wrote the book How to Win Friends and Influence People,
which I believe should be required compulsory reading for everyone. Everyone, perhaps at the age of 13, 14, and then revisit it 10 years. It's absolutely critical.
And he, in this book, it's all about 30 principles that you should try and live and work by. And they're the principles of, first of all, getting a relationship right.
Yep.
And once that's in place and those foundations are strong, you can then begin to gain cooperation and influence people.
Of course, yeah.
And that's very different to manipulating people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then once that's in place, you can then exhibit the traits of a leader. And so there are these 30 principles that if you consistently live by, and it goes right back to the beginning of our conversation, if you've got those ethics and you live them, people can see them. It has a huge impact on your personal and business life.
Only a small book, and it's written in really easy language. It's not an academic text, so there is no excuse for anybody not to read it.
It's so powerful.
I used to have, in the good old days when we had OHPs, and I've probably still got it on PowerPoint, I used to have a Dale Carnegie quote that I used to stick up at the end of any sort of leadership management course. And I can't remember the whole quote, but it's about inspire people, thank them, praise them, encourage them, and do that. You will be surrounded by motivated people.
It's all about growing people through encouragement, not the big stick.
Absolutely, I agree with you completely.
If you can be that person that inspires them, so they want to follow you, rather than being behind them with a big stick trying to chase them. Yeah,
which we now know doesn't work.
Your business.
Yeah, and all the recent stuff. I don't think it was Ian I was talking to. I think maybe it's Jess I was talking to yesterday about our discretionary effort. If I do a job for you, I have to do what I need to do to get paid. But there's discretionary effort. I could go the extra mile. I could be committed and I could be loyal and I could come up with ideas. Yeah. Why does that happen? Only if I've got a good relationship with you. 80% of discretionary effort is the relationship with our line manager or the person we're working with.
Well, they say you join a company, but you leave a manager.
Absolutely, that's true. That's true.
And when Gallup
asked the question of a couple of million people, at work, do you get the opportunity to do what you do best? Only 20% answered yes.
Yeah.
Which is,
And there was another survey that said, I think it was 47% in the UK don't trust their line manager.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, horrendous statistic.
And if you ask the managers how many people trust them, they say, oh, yes, all my staff trust me. Yeah. I have those statistics in a pocket that is sometimes when I go networking and use as an introduction, how many managers think they coach their people and how many people think they are coached. Such it's...
Quite a discrepancy, yeah.
Quite a discrepancy, yeah. Fascinating stuff. Have you got anything coming up soon, Trevor, where we could find out more about you, listen to you, perhaps?
I'm speaking about the whole sort of the power of and. I'm speaking at a networking event coming up. So the Oxfordshire Project run a networking event out at the Inn at Farnborough, and that's on the evening of Tuesday, the 8th of April.
I might try and get along to that. I've been meaning to get to the Oxfordshire Project, and I haven't done that. So,
and again, I mean that's a project trying to using mostly volunteers to try and encourage people to use local businesses, to keep business local, to use small businesses. It is the root of the recovery that we're seeing in the UK at the moment. So,
absolutely. Ian's waving his fingers at me again, which he does quite often. Anything else you'd like to tell us or talk to us about before I have to say goodbye, Trevor?
I don't think so. Just if anybody would care to find out more about what we do, it's the 3 W's, thelast.hurdle.co.uk. Be very happy to come and talk to them and see what we can do.
And as I said, brilliant name for a business, I think. I think I've been following Jules on Twitter for some time now, so it's really lovely to talk to you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and I hope to meet you in the flesh networking at some point.
Grand. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Trevor. You've been an absolute star and insightful, and it's been an absolute pleasure sitting here and watching you two engage. So,
thank you very much.
Have a great time, Trevor. Bye.
Cheers now.
Yeah,
bye
thanks,
now.
Trevor. Bye.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? And I love watching you, Julie, because when somebody speaks the language which you enjoy, I mean, ethics. That's
ethics.
That is
the only is ethics. Sorry, ethics.
Ethics.
The only way in ethics. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I mean, you went round there and dug up all the dirt about what that.